Throughout the film Fury, there are many scenes that show how each person in the tank has a different perspective on the situation, because each person in the tank has a different perspective. Since we are using the ideology of perspective, we wanted to find some examples that are in our main source, Fury. One of the scenes that I chose is the first ambush against the first platoon. There are some German kids in the woods, and since Norman has the perspective that some people have good in them, he decides not to shoot the kids, and the kids end up killing one of the tanks in their platoon. In the scene, War Daddy takes out the trash, turns to Norman for answers.
Norman! You cocksucker! Why didn't you take the shot?
He was just a kid. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, Sergeant.
You see what a kid can do? Look!
That scene is one of my favorites because it shows how War Daddy asserts his dominance on Norman and shows Norman what perspective he should have compared to the one he had before. Norman sees the good in everyone, and War Daddy, as he says in one of the scenes, now you've seen what one man can do to another.
The scene that I chose was when War Daddy forces Norman to shoot the German soldier that has been caught and has already surrendered. Norman sees the soldier as a human being, but War Daddy sees him as the enemy, and nothing else. This scene shows how Norman still hasn't accepted the war and hasn't seen what one man can do to another.
Damn good to me unless you can kill crowds. Put a big fat hole in his back. Put a big fat hole in his fucking back.
No.
Why the hell not?
It's not right.
Not right. We're not here for right and wrong. We're here to kill them. Why are you here? You're here to kill him. You know why he's here? He's here to kill you. He's here to kill you.
Some of our secondary sources, such as the influences on perception by the Peak Performance Center, How Religion Affects Everyday Life by the Pew Research Center's Religion and Public Life Project, and religious contributions to peacemaking when religion ends wars, not starts them, all explain how people get their perspective and how people see the world in their own way. Some people, like Norman, who is Christian in the movie, is helped by religion. To Norman, people, or at least in half the movie, people are innocent until proven guilty. Another scene in the movie that shows some perspective is when War Daddy shows a little bit of his soft side. He finds two women who were still in one of the cities that they had just came into with their tanks, and offers them a pack of cigarettes to cook the eggs that he had with him. And this just shows how War Daddy has two different sides of him and how his perspective is changed with Norman showing him that there is another side to it.
Offer the girl her plate. There you go. Oops. Hold on. Hang on there. We'll fix that for you. Let me just fix this for you real quick. I didn't touch it.
As well, after this scene, the rest of the tank finds Norman and War Daddy in the apartment, but they don't seem to have the same perspective or view on these girls that as War Daddy and Norman do. When they bring out the eggs, Grady doesn't allow the girl to eat her egg without a little bit of trouble caused. One of our sources, like the World War II and American Dream, explains how another ideology, the American Dream, works together with perspective, and we are using this as a way to explain how Grady is acting in this scene. He sees War Daddy acting differently than he usually does, and makes up for it in his own way. The last scene that we chose to do with perspective is when Norman finally flips the switch on all that he has learned through his life and just turns all that off. It's at the end when Norman and the tank are holding the crossroad, and he is the one getting into it, and he really shows grit within this scene.
The building is full of fucking crowd. Fire! Fire! Give me another. That was beautiful.
You clear!
For what? Bow gunner, watch that left.
Better fucking run.
It's probably my favorite scene because you can see just how much he has changed mentally and physically about his perspective.